There are hopes and treasures beyond your broken wing. There are hopes and treasures beyond your broken wing.
Hi, I'm Deb Maybury, and I'm here this morning with Arthur Lockhart at the Gatehouse here in Toronto. He's the founder and the creator of this wonderful place. Good morning, Art. Morning, real morning.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Thank you for participating in this segment of Reveal,
Absolutely.
Connect, and Heal.
Good.
So I have some questions for you.
Sure.
It was a real pleasure. It was almost 2 years ago that we did the interview for my book, Unlock the Door.
Yeah, and then...
Time flies.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
So share with the viewers a little bit about how the Gatehouse serves the community.
The Gatehouse, I guess, serves the community on a number of levels. One, it's the only house of its kind in the whole country, in that what happens here is the police use the house to do childhood sexual abuse investigation scenarios. So if a child has disclosed they've been abused, the police come here with the child, the family, the non-offending family members, and they do the investigation here. There's a special room set up upstairs for that. The other thing that happens here is we have a program for adult men who have been sexually abused as children. It runs here, and it's one of the first of its kind in the whole country. There's hardly any services for adult males and adult females who've been sexually abused as children. So we also have a program for women as well. We also have a program here for young adults, 18 through 24, which is a very, very sensitive area to be working with. And so that makes it pretty special. In addition to those programs, we have a program for co-ed program where men and women adults come together and go through a process of sharing their insights, their stories about having been abused as children. So that's something that's pretty unique, and it's run by mostly volunteers. That's another piece that makes this house so, when you use the word community, it's so cool, right? It's people such as yourself. You're a facilitator here, so it's beautiful. And if it wasn't for people such as yourself, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't have the programs, because it's the volunteers that make this work. And that's really something, because where there aren't programs in the country, many of those programs, most of the time people have to pay to use the services. It doesn't happen that way here. Everything here is free for people to come forward. And I think that's pretty fantastic. So again, because of you and other people such as yourselves, we have somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 volunteers here, which is pretty amazing, yeah. So that's
That's
special.
great. Thank you for sharing that. And
Yeah.
it's a unique place. It's a wonderful place. It is. It was a home.
Yeah.
It really was a home, and
Yeah.
it has that feel. It's a very comfortable feeling. Now, we just had the 15-year anniversary celebration. How did that feel?
That was pretty amazing. 15 years of working here, of this house being alive, because it really is its own personality. People often say when they walk in, there's a certain vibe. And when we were building it 15 years ago, one of the things that we would say to people at the end of their time, whether they're working for a couple of hours or even a whole day, helping build the house, because the community built the house, came together and volunteered, I would ask them to rub their hand on the wall and say, "Have a nice day," to the house. And so I think their energy is imbued and embedded in the house here. And so for over 15 years now, that's pretty amazing. And it never struck me until one of the folks that works here, her name is Maria, said to me, "You know that we were doing some statistics about the number of people who come through the house. And the calculation came out that somewhere in the neighborhood of 20,000 people had been affected by this house. 20,000 people. And we arrived at that number by saying, when one person walks through the door, there's probably about 3 other people surrounding that person that we don't see at that moment. So for example, a man walks into the house, first time he's 50 years old, let's say, he's really bringing into the house not only his story, but the connection to his partner back at home. And then usually there may be some children involved. And so you start to realize, oh my gosh, like it's not just the one person sitting in the room. So that's where
it's very far-reaching. Very
unbelievable, unbelievable, yeah.
Yes,
So,
we think of how many people are affected in our day-to-day lives, and that's how many people are affected
absolutely.
when somebody comes and begins their journey of self-discovery and healing. So, what are a couple of the? I'm assuming there are some big differences from 15 years ago when the house first opened. What are some changes? Anything that jumps out in your mind when I ask you the question?
Yeah, the first thing that jumps out for me is for the men who were abused as children. When we started the house 15 years ago, there were people who said, you can't do that. Because the notion was that if you were an adult male who'd been abused as a child, you were also going to be seen as an offender. There's this urban legend out there that if you're abused as a child, you're automatically going to be an abuser. That was really a massive urban legend, a massive misconception, a harmful misconception. So to see that shift where now men come to this house and get really strong again is, I can't tell you how amazing that makes me feel. It's beautiful. The other thing that is really beautiful that has shifted, and this house, I think, I may be wrong, but I think this is the only place really that brought people together, men and women, intentionally to sit down and go through, in this case, a 15-week program about what it was like to be abused as a child and what do they have to work their way through. Often we still had this notion that only women could be in one group and only men could be in another group, and there's strength to that. Absolutely, that makes a lot of sense. I think I see it as a foundational piece, but then you get them talking together, and that's because we're out in life, right? So that was never, back 15 years ago, you weren't going to have any of that stuff going on, so that's pretty amazing.
Well, it's incredible. In the phase one, as we call it here, the men are by themselves and the women are in another area by themselves. And then in phase two, they come together, and there's always some apprehension.
Yes.
Do we want it?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's just the shame or fear, or what is it?
I think it's the shame and fear all over again. It's almost like when they come together, the men and women come together on their first night, it's probably very similar to their very first night, whether they came in to the men's group or to the women's group, that you're meeting new people for the first time. In the context of sexual abuse, because there's this many nuances related to sexual relationships, whether you're what's called a straight couple or a gay couple, it doesn't matter. There's this element of sexual state, and so people, I think we've been nurtured in not such a healthy way that only men understand a men's story, and only a woman understands a woman's story, and I just don't believe that. I think that there's elements in both stories that both people can get richer and stronger from when they hear each other. And that's been well, you're a facilitator in that.
Same thing. For me, I've always participated in different things like officiating and martial arts, where there were more men than women, and I was always very comfortable in that. So when I originally went through the programs, part of my study project for my book, and all the healing that I did receive, because I was violated as a child, I was so, first of all, kind of surprised that the men and the women were so reluctant coming together, because it's not sort of my fabric in a sense.
Yeah, sure.
But then as I listened to the gals, particularly, I understood the fears, but what was so interesting is that when they came together, or we came together, and I'm on my fourth, I think, experience with the phase two, and third time in facilitating, just started last week, and almost instantly there are bonds that are forged, because they just go, okay, I guess we have more similarities than dissimilarities.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Yeah.
There are hopes and treasures beyond are hopes and treasures beyond your broken wings.